Out of the blue, like a snake in the grass, the Atlanta Falcons and close to midnight last night announced that they have officially interviewed Jim Harbaugh. Now, I think that's Jim Harbaugh's second interview. And I also think there was an important note about this, that Bill Belichick and Jim Harbaugh are the only two coaches that the Falcons have interviewed in person. Now, I don't know if that's really that important. It could just
Rule
be
based. Rule based.
Is it
It's
rule
rule
based?
based.
Okay. But regardless, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Jim Harbaugh is my top candidate. I think he's in everybody's top three candidates. I think he'd be a slam dunk hire. He brings everything that Bill Belichick brings in terms of experience, knowing how to win, except he's younger. He's not going to be out of here in 3 to 4 years unless it just does not work out. And he has offensive pedigree. He's a former quarterback. He's kind of been proven to be a little bit of a quarterback whisperer. Now, Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith and J.J. McCarthy aren't Hall of Famers by any means, but they're also guys that aren't ultra talented. I mean, Colin Kaepernick hasn't been in the league since Jim Harbaugh was around. He basically tailored his whole offense to him and got the most out of him. So he knows how to squeeze the most out of his personnel. And I just think he's the most attractive candidate, bar none.
I don't know. He is also my most attractive candidate. He'd be my top choice if I was making the decision and he wanted to come to Atlanta. But I don't see any reason other than, you just don't like his personality that he wouldn't be in anybody's top three. You cannot name three better head coaches for the Falcons. That's important. That a lot of people are misconstruing the fact that Bill Belichick, me saying that he's not a fit in Atlanta, that he wouldn't be a fit elsewhere, because I do think Bill Belichick can still coach. It's just a matter of the right situation. And the fact of the matter is Atlanta and him do not match up. It's a wonky fit. We don't have a quarterback. We need somebody who's going to be here for the long haul and invest in that position. We don't need another Band-Aid. We don't need another half measure. We need a full measure, a full fix, a guy that's going to be our next franchise quarterback. Enough of the free agents, enough of the veterans, enough of this third-round pick and hope and pray that he can just, lead the offense a little bit. No. We need a full measure fix. And Bill Belichick doesn't feel like that kind of head coach where he's going to, potentially invest his time in another rookie like he did with Mac Jones. If it worked out in New England, he wouldn't be a free agent right now. Whereas Jim Harbaugh, unlike a lot of these head coaches, to your point, has the experience of Belichick, and he does seem like he'd be willing to kind of stick around and develop a quarterback, as you mentioned, kind of a quarterback whisperer of sorts. And I think that you'd be a fool not to recognize the fact that Jim Harbaugh is a long-term fix. And now I don't want to go on and say, he would be here for 20 years like Bill Belichick was in New England, but it does feel a little bit like Jim Harbaugh. He got the natty. He lost a Super Bowl to his brother. It feels like that's the next checklist thing, is to get his Super Bowl. And I know Bill Belichick wants to get another Super Bowl too, and match Don Shula's win record and match Tom Brady's Super Bowl. But the fact of the matter is maybe Belichick gets past Don Shula's win record and then just goes, all right, this Falcons team it's not going to get me to the Super Bowl. I'm out of here. I'm retiring off of the sunset. Whereas Harbaugh feels like this could be a final stop in his coaching career. Like it really does. It feels like it could be a decade-long stint.
Yeah, and I think that's 100% true. I feel like this probably is like Brian Kelly likes to say, the last stop on the Harbaugh train. So wherever he goes next, which is why I think the next question is the more intriguing one, is why would he choose the Atlanta Falcons? And he's probably the most coveted head coach for all the reasons that we named. And we're even going beyond this. I mean, we have a team in Michigan, a program in Michigan that is probably going to be willing to offer him whatever he needs to stay if that's what he wants to do. Now, he might just already be done with the idea of college football and the NCAA and that whole mess. But regardless, I mean, there's so many openings. There's even more that could be coming in Philadelphia and Dallas, like we talked about yesterday. And I'm sure their first call is going to be to Jim Harbaugh. So he's probably going to have quite literally the pick of the litter. And why would he choose Atlanta? I think the biggest thing is you do have some talent. You do have a young team that's underachieving. You do have kind of a fresh slate in terms of the quarterback position. You can go out and get your guy and you can mold him. And if he's looking at this like this is a 10-year plan, not a 1, 2, or 3 year plan, then maybe he is a little more attracted to a place where he can get his guy, mold him into who he wants, and then continue to develop this team that has cap space, that has all their draft picks. Because as a lot of people say about Jim Harbaugh, he's the ultimate CEO. He knows how to build a team. Well, in Atlanta, unlike a lot of other places, the team isn't already built. There's some pieces in place, but it's not built.
Atlanta is malleable, whereas Dallas, they don't have that much more flexibility to kind of expand, adjust the roster without significant changes. The Falcons, they're younger. Yes, they have some veterans that are locked up. Jake Matthews, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata. But for the most part, this is a young roster. Chris Lindstrom, all 3 top 10 draft picks. Jesse Bates is only like 26 years old. AJ Terrell. Like, this is a very malleable roster where there's not a lot of salary that's locked up. Like, the Falcons have flexible cap space. They have all of their draft picks. In fact, they will have some more if Calvin Ridley and the Jaguars ink that contract extension. So if you want to talk about kind of a fresh slate, a fresh canvas that you can paint your own brush, it's the Atlanta Falcons. They have money. Arthur Blank is going to give Jim Harbaugh, in terms of resources, whatever he needs in terms of hiring his staff. If something needs to happen, a flowery branch, Arthur Blank is going to pay for it. He's willing to pony up whatever it takes to get Jim Harbaugh. And that's also something Michigan can't match. Michigan will never be able to match what Arthur Blank can potentially offer Harbaugh. Whether it's about money, I don't think so much it's about money, more as like the right fit. And you want to talk about, in terms of the competition, the Chargers, though they do have Justin Herbert, and that is maybe the biggest selling point to Jim Harbaugh is the quarterback, and that could be possible. Their roster, it's going to be, I don't know the details, but they're essentially in cap hell. They got a ton of money allocated to Derwin James, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, a bunch of aging guys, and who frankly struggled to stay on the field. So, and they have all that dead money from the J.C. Jackson deal that they just ended up shipping them off to New England. So the fact is, if you want to talk about a fresh slate in a situation that's malleable, that Jim Harbaugh can come, like you said, he's been heralded for his ability to build a roster. No team, no situation is as flexible or as malleable, like I'm saying, as the Atlanta Falcons. Even if the Cowboys job opens up. Now, the Eagles are a little bit different. They have plenty of cap space. Howie Roseman has shown an ability to draft well. They have a bunch of money coming off the books, but they do have to replace those players. I'm just saying, in terms of the Chargers and Falcons, the 2 places that Harbaugh has interviewed at the NFL level, there's no arguing. I mean, Atlanta is a much more flexible space where Harbaugh can come in and have his finger on everything, whereas Chargers, maybe not as flexible.
Yeah, but then you look at the Cowboys situation and the Eagles situation. Those are very different situations for the Falcons in terms of pressure. I mean, you're expected to come in and win year 1 and year 2. You don't win in 2 years in Dallas. You might be out. And you have Jerry Jones over you, meddling in every single situation, bringing this circus around you,
almost undermining you to a certain extent.
There's a reason why a lot of good coaches have gone there and not been successful. It's not just because they all suck at coaching. It's because Jerry Jones and that franchise is a circus. And Philly, you saw Nick Sirianni was in the Super Bowl last year. He has one bad year. The team kind of falls off. They're talking about firing him. There's pressure to win right away. In Atlanta, there's no pressure. You've mentioned the fact that they're in the NFC South. It's the easiest division in the league. You can run this division. And as long as you win the division, there's not going to be a lot more expectations for you than that.
Yeah, I think the division is one of the most underrated selling points of the Falcons' job. I did an article on it. Go check it out on the site, sportstalkatl.com. I talked about the cap space, the draft picks. Though Arthur Blank sometimes, meddles in football operations, he doesn't do it nearly as much as Jerry Jones does. But Arthur Blank is a good owner. He will give you time. He will support you financially or whatever you need. But one of the most underrated aspects of the Falcons' job is the division. The Saints are a crap show. The Panthers are a crap show. The Bucs seemingly got it right, but they're only marginally better, in my opinion. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Baker Mayfield wasn't a complete bum like we had in Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder. You get that right, Jim Harbaugh, and you're running this division for the next decade. The Chargers, guess who you're competing with for the rest of your tenure? Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think the Falcons are one of the more desirable landing spots, and hopefully a guy like Jim Harbaugh agrees, because I think that would be a slam dunk hire. Coming up after the break, Terry Fontenot, is he done in Atlanta if the Falcons go the direction of Bill Belichick?